Hello. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lizzie Wittig. I'm the director of the HEAL Policy Center of Excellence here at Tigerlily. I get to work on our policy work and work with a lot of you, and a lot of you have engaged in other policy work we've done before. So thank you. And to those who haven't before, welcome. And we hope you are interested in this and get to engaging with us. But most importantly, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers today. We have three in person here, one who couldn't make it, but we'll have a video from her amazing angel advocates that are going to be sharing with you a little bit today. So why don't we go ahead and get started? And Erica, would you like to start us off and say hi?
Sure, yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Faye. I am a wife, I am a stepmom, and I have a little dog named Iggy. He's a Shih Tzu. For work, I've been working in social media for over a decade now, and I'm also the marketing director for my family's music studio. And I love all things creative. So I like to paint, I do photography and videography. I play the flute, and I just released my first cookbook. I just published it, so that's super exciting. So for me, I was diagnosed when I was 31. That was in 2021, and I was diagnosed right away with stage 4 breast cancer. I'm one of those people that found a lump and just didn't do anything about it for years, and then finally got it diagnosed when it was like at a horrible point. So my entire right breast was a tumor. And I've done every treatment you can think of in the holistic realms. I've done like water fasts, I've gone vegan, I've done all those things. And I've also done chemotherapy twice. I've done radiation, and I've also had a mastectomy with deep flap reconstruction. Um, yes. Yeah, like I said, I've done a lot of holistic things too to help support my body through all of those like harsher treatments. And that's been really helpful for me. I've switched over to clean beauty products and house cleaning products. Like I said, I've done fasts with juices and water. I've done vitamin C drips, like all kinds of crazy stuff. And then for advocacy work, I have actually done a partnership on social media with the American Cancer Society. It was during Black History Month, and I just shared my story and expressed, what happened to me during my journey and how Black people are affected differently and treated differently during diagnosis and treatment of breast cancer. And this is my first time doing a panel with Tigerlily as an advocate, and I'm super excited. And yeah, thank you, Tigerlily, for having me.
Thanks, Erica. We are very lucky and happy to have you. And I'll go ahead and pass it over to Catherine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Jackson. I reside in the lovely Chicago, Illinois, Windy City. I have a daughter who gets on my nerves a lot. She's going to college, but she still needs my help with everything, including filling out applications. It's crazy. Um, I love to shop. I purposely put my credit cards and all those things up in the safe because I have an addiction to shopping. I can pay it off, but I have addiction. That's just everything. So like Erica, I've done a lot of like I'm getting into more of like the vegan. Then I went to pescatarian because I love seafood. So it was very hard for me. I went vegan for like a whole month and I was like, okay, I'm getting bored. I need to figure out something. I do a lot of the juices. Oh, to tell you a little bit about my diagnosis, I got diagnosed in 2018 at the age of 32, right before my 33rd birthday, with stage 2B to 3, ERPR positive, HER2 negative, which later on I found out was a little bit of HER2 low, which after you take this blood test, you find out there's some more stuff. Um, I had chemotherapy and radiation that first time. Then COVID hit. I'm going fast forward. Found out it came back at the end of 2020. And same thing, ERPR positive, HER2 negative. Then it was still in the right, well, the first time I had a lumpectomy in the right side of my breast. Um, it came back on the right side, but in a different place. So then I opted to do the double mastectomy in January of 2021, double mastectomy with D-flap surgery, which was a lot. that was like a 12-hour surgery, very painful. It took me almost like 3 months to get over that whole thing. Um, After that, I went on, like hormone blockers. I had the injections and those different things I have to get every single month. I didn't have to do chemo, thankfully, but I just went on a lot of the hormone blockers and then started changing my whole diet. I pretty much never ate, like, I haven't had pork since 2002 and beef since 2006. So that was way before I even had breast cancer. I was lactose intolerant, so I never really did dairy because I would be in the bathroom. Long story. I got IBS too, so that would not be a good combination. So then, after pretty much like all of that, then now I'm a metastatic breast cancer thriver. Um, it came back in the end of 2020 and 2022. Um, and long story, I was in another doctor's office and I kept having pain on my right side, right there underneath my rib cage. And he was like, "We're gonna give you an emergency CT scan." And I was like, "Okay." So then he was like, "Oh, I was thinking it's your appendix, but it's not your appendix, it's your liver." So I had 3 lesions in my liver. Then it was on my right hip bone. Also, it's on the left side underneath like my lymph node. And so that's the places that it came back to. So I have completed, well, I have been on 7 different drugs so far. My thing is that I do have a mutation. I have a PIK3CA mutation. And if you know anything about those mutations, it's just a lot more other things that you need to find, like any drugs that you need to find to be able to treat you. Because I've been on 7 drugs so far. I'm on the one that's actually working. Thank God. I just got my scans again, and my tumors. I just found out my tumors in my liver have decreased. Thank God. Thank you so much. The only thing, it's like a good and a bad, but it's like I'm here actually right now because I have to go in to get radiation because the unfortunate thing on my bones, they see uptake on my bones where it's kind of going to my lower spine to my left area. So they're gonna do radiation along with all the many injections I gotta get every single month, and the drugs that I take every single day for chemo. So that's kind of like my whole story, and that's where I'm at right now. But I'm thriving, and this is what I do. As far as advocacy work, I was probably like part of the first cohort, I believe, of the Angel Advocate program. With Tigerlily, I've done several things with Tigerlily, spoken at so many galas, Coleman, all those different things. I'm a part of so many breast cancer things right now. I can't even keep count right now, but I'm just grateful for Tigerlily and the breasties that I've met through Tigerlily, because we even formed our own, and Jacqueline knows this, our own Chi-Town Tigerlily group where we meet like every month, and we're on like group text messages, and we send messages back and forth all day, every day. So my phone is constantly going off, but I love it. And we have formed a bond where we're doing a lot of things. And coming up next week, actually, we're going to go to the Sister Strut together and walk together because we all just do a lot of breast cancer things together all the time. So I think that's the beauty of just this network and Tigerlily Foundation. I'm so grateful for everything I've done with Tigerlily and continue to do, and continue to meet so many wonderful people like the amazing faces we have here. So that's kind of like, I don't want to take up too much more time, but that's about me. So thank you so much, Tigerlily. Again, Tigerlily is like my cousins, cousins, this long distance cousins.
I love that. Thank you so much, Catherine. And I love hearing about all the collaborations and the groups that you've started some locally. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing all that. And Neosha?
Hi, I'm Neosha Ponder. I am a angel advocate in DC. I was diagnosed in 2016 on the day when doves cried, and I'm part of the deep flat family. I love my deep boob. I only have one deep boob. That's another story. I wrote a book about it. But I was diagnosed at 36 with invasive ductal carcinoma, ERPR negative, HER2 positive. And I underwent chemo, radiation, and I have just had my 9th surgery. So I've had like I would say, 3 major surgeries outside of the mastectomy with my reconstruction. So I have 2 different reconstructed breasts. I have one from my stomach, which is the deep boob, and then I have a lat boob, which is from my back. And then I've had all these revisions, right, to keep them up and the same size and things because they're from different parts of my body. But I don't take anything, I wouldn't take anything back. I am perfectly fine with all that I've been through. It took me a long time to get there, let me tell you. But but yeah, so I love being an angel advocate. I started technically in 2021, even before at the end. Lizzie needed help with some white paper stuff. She was like, "Oh, you have a PhD. I need you to look over this stuff." And then I had the training in March of 2022, and then immediately I got a call about being a lead for a new program that they were starting, and I was one of the first 5 leads. And yeah, since then it's just been whatever y'all asked me to do pretty much. I don't think I ever say no. And and I am excited to be here, and this is such great information. I'm excited just to jump right in and get started.
Thanks so much, Neersha. I love all of your spirits of never saying no and wanting to do things. So thank you. But and again, Catherine, I know you mentioned you have an appointment and you're there early on here making it work. Lachelle couldn't join us because she actually has a doctor's appointment right now too, but we have a video from her that we'll play in a minute. But we just appreciate you all so much in your spirit of making it work, being there, doing everything you can. All of you advocates are amazing in that way. And so we're excited to be able to support you however we can. And so we'll dive in today. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about prescription drug affordability boards. And so to get started, I just like to explain a little bit of what that is, because I think most of us, myself included, had no idea what this was and it was going on until we found out. And it's not really talked about widely. So prescription drug affordability boards are state boards, and they're government appointed boards, and they have the authority to review different prescription drugs and their costs and determine or decide if that drug is affordable or not for patients. And so these boards are formed by policymakers and don't currently include any patient, provider, caregiver, advocate representation. So, there's no guarantee that there's anyone on the boards who have experience in the real world of those impacts of those treatments and accessing them. One of the most common tools that these boards use to what if they determine a drug is unaffordable for patients is called an upper payment limit. And that's just a cap amount that they put on the price of the drugs that the healthcare payer. So we're going to talk about some different definitions from what we usually do. This would be Medicaid, Medicare, commercial insurance, private insurance. Those payers can reimburse the provider. So whether that's your oncologist, a cancer center, a pharmacist, whoever's purchasing that medication for you. So they put a cap on that reimbursement to the entity who purchased the medication that they've deemed to be unaffordable for patients. And so again, we're talking about this a little bit differently. You'll see some definitions down there, but purchasing is talking about buying those medications for patients, but the provider entity buying them, not the patient. And then the payer is, again, those insurance, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, private health insurance, that they reimburse the purchaser, again, that provider, cancer center, for the cost of the medication. So that's kind of a quick overview of what we're talking about. And some terms that these a little bit differently for us. So we have this flow chart here to kind of help describe this issue and highlight some of the concerns, which we'll get into in more detail and more in depth in just a moment. But this is how that process normally works without a UPL or anything implemented right now. That cancer center or provider or pharmacy will purchase a drug for the patient. And we're talking about like insured patients. So we'll just for easy number's sake, we're saying it costs $5,000. So if it's a cancer center, let's say it's an IV chemotherapy. It costs them $5,000 to purchase that drug to have it at the cancer center for the patient. The patient then gets it and pays their out-of-pocket costs. So we're saying here it's $150 that they're paying for their copay or their share of cost. Then Medicare or whoever the payer is reimburses the cancer center that $5,000 for the drug. So if a PDAB or one of these boards decides that this specific IV chemotherapy is not affordable for patients and they want to implement a UPL, this is how it actually works. The PDAB would set that UPL or that cap at, let's say, $2,500, half of what the cost of the drug is. The cancer center then purchases that drug for the patient still at $5,000 because that's the cost of the drug. The patient still pays that full $150. You'll see there in the highlighted purple section, there's no change in cost for the patient. That then Medicare reimburses that cancer center back for only $2,500 because that's the cap on the drug. So that cancer center could actually lose money because of that lower reimbursement on that one specific drug. So we'll talk about this a little bit more, but that's kind of the scenario and the process that we're talking about here at one of the many examples. So when we look at how these UPLs actually impact patients, if a PDAB, a Prescription Drug Affordability Board, decides that a drug's unaffordable and they use a UPL to lower the cost or put a cap on it, that again is just the maximum amount that the payer reimburses the provider for that. And a lot of times this leaves patients with limited access to those medications. One, because the provider then, whether it's an oncologist, cancer center, pharmacist, is out that money. And so a lot of local, smaller community pharmacies or cancer centers might close their doors because they lose that money and they can't afford that loss. And then some providers might be forced to choose between actually purchasing that drug and taking the loss or finding a less effective treatment plan, another option. Or a patient might not go with a provider recommended treatment plan if they're told this is what you need, but we don't actually buy that drug here. You have to go somewhere else to get it. And in the most kind of severe cases, this might cause a manufacturer to pull out of a state altogether and not provide that drug in that state. So if a patient needs that drug, they would have to cross state lines to get it. So, keeping in mind that there's no actual patient benefit. The patient in this is not affected except for with additional barriers. There's no cost savings. There's no change in their out-of-pocket costs, but all these other kind of unintended effects or consequences can happen. And we talk about manufacturer maybe pulling out or not providing a drug. And so when we look at how a drug comes to market, it's good to remember that it takes roughly about 12 years and billions of dollars for a drug to come to market. And this is a flow chart many of us have probably seen before of what that looks like, 5 to 6 years in the research discovery phase where scientists are developing that drug, clinical trials and the years that go through that. And then even post-market after FDA approval, there's continuing monitoring going on, which is especially important for those who aren't represented in clinical trials like young Black and brown patients, because that's then when we find out what those side effects are on different people that weren't in the clinical trials. So we'll dive into this a little bit more here, but talking about PDABs and their impacts, we're kind of looking at 3 different buckets here: patient affordability, health equity, and innovation, that reinvestment in new drugs so we have new therapies. And as these PDABs are becoming more common in states across the US and the UPLs are being used to set these cap prices, we're seeing that this is putting patients' access at risk and health equity at risk. And so we'll kind of, these buckets like intertwine very, very much, but this is kind of how we're going to talk about them today. So this, again, I'm sorry that Lachelle was not able to join. She's at her doctor's appointment, but this was going to be her section. But she did record a little video for us. And it's also her birthday. So quick shout out, happy birthday, Lachelle, when you see this recording. But we're here really just kind of looking, again, some of the financial barriers for hospitals and clinics to be able to provide the most effective medications for their patients. And when we talked about personalized medicine, we really want to make sure that every patient is getting the drug that's going to work best for them and their specific diagnosis and situation. And so again, anything that might cause a barrier to that and lead patients to have to search elsewhere or figure out how to get the medication that would be best for them when it's not available where they are is a huge barrier and something patients shouldn't have to shoulder the burden of. Again, these UPLs do not affect the out-of-pocket costs for patients. There's no benefit to the patients once these are put in. And the PDABs and the boards usually don't consider other forms of patient assistance when conducting these reviews. So there might be state or federal or manufacturer assistant programs for the drug that make it affordable for patients. But because that patient perspective isn't included in that review, the board might not know that and make decisions without knowing that. So I'm going to go ahead and play Lachelle's video here. She shares a little bit more about this and why it's important to her.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lachelle Scott, and I'm an angel advocate here in Houston, Texas. I'm also a stage 3 HER2 positive BRCA2 gene mutation breast cancer survivor thriver. And I'm sorry I couldn't be with you guys on this webinar today. Actually, I have a doctor's appointment today of all days, but it's a great segue. I've been doing advocacy work for over a year. I've written various bills that I hope to have reintroduced in our Texas legislative session of the 89th, which is coming up next year. So I'm gearing up for that. In my spare time, I am a mom to a Siberian Husky named Bartholomew, or Bart. He's my world and my joy, and he's also my emotional support animal. And this issue is very important to me because one thing I've learned on this journey is understanding how insurance companies work, how prescription boards work, how drugs are priced, who pays for what and how. I'm in the state of Texas where they scream about the standard of care, but what is actually defined as standard of care here? I can just recall previously when I needed a device and my insurance was denied 6 times for the device. So the only thing that they would approve was a actual shot. I offered to pay for the device, but my oncologist kept saying, well, Ms. Scott, it's too expensive for you. And I was like, well, I have insurance. I don't understand. I need to understand if this is going to save my life and I'm not, prevents me having to come in the office, for 30 minutes for a shot, then and not injuring myself, why can't I have this life-saving device and I have to take this shot? Well, fortunately, I was not able to get the device and I had to get the shot. As someone that has to get insurance, commercial insurance, and having someone on these medical boards and these prescription boards that make all these decisions without understanding the dynamics of a patient, especially here, and we have some of the best medical facilities in the country, yet the denial rate is extremely high for life-saving cancer drugs. And for me, I'm always left last. This is not my first denial. It's actually been my 4th or 5th denial. There were other things that I've needed. And I've seen, well, she can take this. And my doctor is like, no, she needs this or she needs that. And it's always this back and forth, even with detailed notes, even with basically my oncologist saying she needs this to live. It's been denial, or, well, how about this alternative? Well, we don't know how that will work in her system, but we just feel like if she takes this, then she'll be okay. So when do things begin to change? More people need to be made aware of these particular types of boards and policies that are in place so we can change those things. And that is what I hope to do, because You know, I may not save this Lachelle, but I will hope to save the next Lachelle. Why this is important? It's important because it affects each and every one of you. For me, I knew nothing about writing a bill, really advocating for a policy until I started this journey. You can do this. We need every voice at the table. Your voice is the most powerful weapon you have to make and advocate for change. Hi, everyone.
So very, very poignant and important here. And you can see Lachelle's quote, but you know, talking about denials and anything that's going to create more barriers, having a patient not be able to get the best option for them is really unacceptable, and if avoidable, something we really need to speak up about. And so as we talk about PDABs, you know, I want to make it very clear, Tigerlily is 1000% in support of anything that's going to make medications and drugs more affordable for patients, but not at the cost of more barriers and not when there's actually no patient benefit for it. So thank you, Lachelle, for sharing with us and having that video. And at this time, I would like to go ahead and hand it over to Neosha to share with us about the PDAB impacts on health equity.
Thank you, Lizzie and Lachelle, on your birthday in your absence. Okay, so there is no requirement to include patients on these boards or for the boards to be representative of the communities they are making these decisions on behalf of. Essentially, these boards don't have people that look like us or come from where we come from. So the board members are likely to not have specific knowledge on the impact of different conditions on communities of color or young people or any other groups that do not have a seat at the table. I'm gonna say that again. These board members are likely to not have specific knowledge on the impact of different conditions on communities of color or young people or any other groups that do not have a seat at the table. To date, PDABs have been selecting drugs to review that treat conditions that disproportionately impact communities of color. But again, without any or little representation of these communities. We already are lacking in drugs and treatment options that work well for young women, Black and Brown women, because we are not included in the clinical trials. We all know the startling statistic, you know, less than 5% of clinical trial participants look like us. And then also we do not need another entity that determines if we have access to life-saving treatments, making decisions on our behalf without any representation. PDABs and their use of UPLs could widen the gaps for Black women and young women diagnosed with breast cancer or other chronic conditions. A lot of us have other conditions that have come out of our breast cancer journey or breast cancer experience. You know, I have high blood pressure, and that's something that, you know, that's a chronic condition. Many state cancer coalitions and other health-related groups and agencies include health equity in their goals. But if policies like this continue, those goals will become further out of reach. And we have to also point out that, you know, DEI is under attack. So if they don't, or they are not aware of the need for diversity, and it's not in their everyday lexicon anyway, then we're going to suffer, essentially. PDABs and their use of UPLs, we need these policies that remove barriers to treatment. I say again, we need policies that remove barriers to treatment, especially for Black women diagnosed with breast cancer and those living with metastatic disease. And these are our sisters, you know, our fellow advocates, our friends, in some cases, you know, our blood sisters even, you know, and we have to make sure that as we say in all of our barrier toolkits, you have to be aware of these barriers in order to actually reduce that 40%, where Black women are 40% more likely to die of breast cancer than our white counterparts, to increase the number of Black women, Black and brown women who participate in clinical trials. And it's one of those things where not having health equity, you don't see it like that. As someone, most of us are college educated, right? We grew up, we didn't grow up poor to the point of, not being aware of things around us. And still, you don't know how many disparities attack you and people who look like you until you've been diagnosed or until you've worked in this space. With that, I'll pass it back to Lizzie.
Thank you, Neosha, for sharing that and some of your story, and have your beautiful quote up here as well. And I love the way you phrase this: if no one on these boards come from where I come from or look like me, how will they know the impact of inequities on my community? So thank you for sharing about that. Next, we'll go ahead and move on to PDABs impact on innovation. And I'd like to hand it off to Catherine to kick off this discussion for us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Lizzie. PDABs impact on innovation. So basically, approved drugs help innovators recoup these significant costs and fund future R&D efforts. Pharmaceutical manufacturers are forced to invest to less important future research and development efforts when they recoup lower costs for the drugs that they have been subject to a UPL. And I would say for me, this is very important. This is mainly what I advocate on a lot. So I just want to say, I go to right now a bigger facility who can afford certain types of drugs. But I've talked to many breasties, as I call them, my breasties, that don't have access to certain drugs because they're like, well, you're on that drug. I went to my actual oncologist and they were like, we can't get that drug. And the thing is some of the different communities that, there's a lack of a lot of bigger facilities. Like I'm in Chicago where we have pretty much mainly 3/4 of major hospitals where they can afford to get certain types of drugs. But I have met several people that come from Indiana that have to come all the way to Northwestern just to receive treatment because the community hospital that's in Indiana does not carry those different types of drugs. And that's mainly because of what this states. It's a reinvestment process. And the thing is, if they're not recouping the benefits of the drug or recouping the cost of those drugs, then they just won't have the drug. And then patients will have to go further distance to even get the drug that they need. Or another thing is that it's very, depending on if that drug is working in some of these facilities, that depends on whether or not they're going to keep on carrying that drug because of course the cancer facility has to take on the cost of that as well. And so I've been on 7 different types of drugs during my metastatic breast cancer process. So I have learned so much about why this drug is not here versus this drug. I even went to one of the major hospitals in the world back in April just to see if they have anything different than the facility, because I'm like, well, I go to the big facility, but I don't go to the one in the world. So this has been very important to me just because a lot of the breasties I know some people who have passed that went to even some facilities in Chicago that didn't have the certain types of drugs, and they just couldn't afford to drive back and forth to a facility like where I go right now in Northwestern or Rush Hospital. Which good thing is Rush partnered with MD Anderson now to have more benefit for those cancer treatments, which I am excited about. But the thing is that it's still a cost to the hospital and the manufacturers. And the manufacturers are saying hey, we're not reaping the benefits based off of what the cost or reaping the lower cost for those drugs for them to recoup the investment back, because it takes a lot of money for these drugs to go into clinical trials, and it just takes a lot of money through the whole process. And so I feel like these boards don't see the other effects that happen behind the scenes where the patient is lacking these type of treatments. And unfortunately, some people end up giving up. And I've known breasties that have passed away that just gave up because they was like, well, I can't get this drug. And this facility that has the drug I can't get to. So what am I supposed to do? And that hurts, because this gap shouldn't be that way. And a lot of these boards, PDABs need to definitely look into these facilities and do everything they can to provide these drugs across the board. It shouldn't be a lack of treatments affecting so many communities. And that's why this is so important to me. And I'm going to keep advocating for this, even over and beyond, even working with more of the insurance companies and see what I can do on that end, because they're a part of it too. But the major thing is that it takes so much, and research and development efforts are extremely expensive. I have a health service management degree along with a finance degree. So like, I know these costs can add up. Like even some of the drugs that I have taken I see the statements and I'm like, oh my God, if I didn't have a certain amount of insurance or any efforts, like my oncologist puts in a lot of effort to make sure I don't take on that cost, but I still take on a lot of costs for the other things. But some of that stuff will like put you in bankruptcy as a patient. And it's either like you're gonna live or you're gonna pay to live, or certain things that you need. And so I sympathize with everybody that's going through this, and the lack of, especially in rural areas. I've had people that I've met even here getting treatment done that have traveled almost 4 hours in the car just to get a drug that this facility carries. And that shouldn't be. It should not be that way. So that's kind of what I'm going to say about this. And I feel like they really need to look at everything, including the patients, including the impact on so many communities and how it affects, anything going forward with healthcare. So I'm going to pass it back to Lizzie.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And I'm so glad you weaved in some of the other barriers we've been talking about too, and accessing and having to go so far out of state to get a drug if your cancer center doesn't have access to it. In addition to this issue of like needing the reinvestment for new therapies to become available, because the ones we have, there's still no cure. And again, as we talked about, aren't developed equitably for everyone. And so it's really important that research continues. So thank you for sharing about that and highlighting it. I'd like to pass it over to Erica now. I know you have a couple of thoughts about this as well, and I'll hand it over to you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Lizzie, and thank you, Catherine. For me, innovation also, obviously that includes life-saving medications, but for me specifically, it's important for just having medications available that provide a better quality of life. And I can speak to this from personal experience because I take a new immunotherapy medication and I get an infusion of it every 3 weeks. I actually have one tomorrow. And what that means for me is basically I have a week of downtime after the infusion where I'm recovering. And then I have about 2 weeks where I feel normal again. So I can do all the things I'm passionate about. I can work, I can be with my family and my friends, just do all the like creative things that I love to do. And those 2 weeks are like gold to me because I can like live a normal life basically. And then after the 2 weeks, I go back for the infusion and then it starts all over again. So I'm in this cycle right now that I've been doing for about a little over a year. And without those 2 weeks available, without these new innovations of medications that provide that quality of life, I feel like that would diminish my hope. It would diminish my quality of life, just like the energy to keep going. So yeah, I think it's really important to have alternative medications available because if I didn't have this new immunotherapy drug, then I would be forced to do harsh chemotherapy, very harsh hormone blocking medications, and just like side effects that would just diminish my ability to do all the things that I love to do and live the life I want to live. So yeah, I think any sort of barrier created with innovation, not only is it affecting the ability to get medications that help us live, but also have that quality of life, which is so important, especially for me and my experience with immunotherapy and this new medicine that I'm on. So yeah, I think that's important. We want to thrive and not just survive, especially young women that have the majority of our lives ahead of us. So yeah, that's what I will say on that and why innovation is so important and how we need to have more balance between having these innovations available and also having drugs that are affordable to the patient. So with that, I will pass it back to you, Lizzie.
Thank you, Erica. It's such an important piece to highlight. It's not just about the life-saving drugs. We need those, but we need them to be tolerable and effective for everybody. So thank you for sharing that and bringing it up. I'm going to go a little fast through this because I want to make sure we have time at the end for us to chat. But I want to make sure to give a little bit of this PDAB landscape. So we've been talking about what they are, some of the harms that can come from them and the concerns that we have. So why does this matter? Where are we at on this issue? So on this map here, you can see the pink highlighted states are states that have already passed legislation that allows for these boards. And the states in gray were states that tried to, or introduced it this year to get that passed. And so you'll see of those, only 3 passed this year. And then the ones with the hash marks in them are states that we are expecting legislation to be reintroduced or introduced for the first time next year in those states. And even though not all the states have the hash marks, that doesn't mean some states won't be introducing them. These are just ones we know for sure. And I do want to just highlight the example of Virginia quickly. You'll see it was introduced this year. It did not pass. And that PDAB legislation was introduced. It passed the House and Senate in the state of Virginia. And then Governor Youngkin vetoed it kind of in the 11th hour because of the outcry and all the voices from the advocate community and the patient advocate organizations that actually stopped that. They're asking them to wait, please reconsider this because of these harms and these concerns that we have. Find a model that does not cause all these additional barriers and issues and threaten patients' access to medication. So I'm just highlighting that to share the importance of you all sharing your voices and engaging in this work, and that it really does have an impact. And we'll kind of get into a minute for looking at next year, but in addition to this landscape, only 4 of the states that have the PDAB legislation enacted do not have the UPL caps, so that the majority of them do. So it's showing this is kind of unique that they don't. These PDABs, again, were developed and set up with the model to provide more affordable medication to patients. You'll see at the bottom there again, and we've talked about several times, there is no cost savings for patients. There is no meaningful patient benefit from these. And in addition to not actually saving patients money, it's costing states money to implement these. The 2 states that are farthest along had startup costs over $700,000. And of all those PDABs that have been enacted and the money that they've used to set them up, only 3 drugs through all the reviews have been deemed as unaffordable and have been addressed. So that's a lot of money, a lot of time without patient input and adding barriers, and only 3 drugs have been deemed unaffordable to look at. So just to quickly look there. And here you can see some of the research and perspectives on PDABs. The National Pharmaceutical Council, is highlighting that the lack of reinvestment will reduce R&D and approval towards new, not only new drugs and treatments, but new indications. And this is really important in the oncology space because more than half, I think it was 61% of all oncology drugs have multiple indications. So for instance, one chemotherapy may have been developed originally for lung cancer, but then is found is really effective in HER2-positive breast cancer or something like that. And so these 2nd, 3rd, 4th uses are really important, but it's additional.
That's how Herceptin came about,
Exactly,
It was
that was my
Alzheimer's drug.
example.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, it's so important that continues, especially for the oncology space. Our partners at the National Black Caucus of State Legislators are highlighting again with us that, they're really targeting, these PDABs and boards are really targeting medicines that treat chronic rare diseases, and especially those that have a higher prevalence within Black and Hispanic communities. And then the Partnership to Fight Chronic Disease did a whole study and has a paper about this where it's really showing that it really isn't possible for patients to be getting benefits from cost savings benefits from this model. So as I shared, we've been engaging this year in advocacy to ask legislators at the state level to reconsider these, look at the concerns and harms that we're bringing up, and find a different model that doesn't harm patients and actually gives them patient benefit. And we've done that through comment letters, op-eds and articles, social media, going to meetings, talking to legislators. And we want to continue this. And so our focus is for the rest of this year, fall and winter, if we can help educate and raise awareness about this, help patients amplify their voice and provide a platform for that and tools to do that, then we can raise awareness about this issue, one, for everyone in our communities to know about. But we can also have these tools available so that in January, when these sessions start and this legislation starts getting reintroduced, we have something to kind of share and aren't scrambling to write a quick letter or something like that. And we have advocates in those states that are engaged and ready and to use their voice and speak up about this, and to hopefully stop bad policies from continuing, like that example in Virginia I shared. And so our roadmap and kind of opportunities that we're talking about here, I'm going to quickly go through this because we're short on time, but would really, we want to continue this education, things like this today, these webinars. We want to provide resources and tools so you all can help educate your communities as well. Participate in listening sessions throughout the 2025 legislative sessions to discuss updates on what's going on in all the states and feedback on our engagement, what you all need, what we can better develop. Proactive outreach by contacting state legislators to discuss this issue and the need for policy that supports future treatments and cures, and eradicating barriers to accessing treatment for patients, not adding to them. And that could be through letter writing campaigns, meetings and calls with legislators, again, sharing resources within our networks. And advocacy is the biggest part of this. So sharing your story and your personal experiences, like Erica, Lachelle, Neosha, and Catherine have today, is so powerful. I think Lachelle said this in her video, your voice is your most powerful weapon, and it really is. So we'd love to connect with everyone. I will send this out, but if you want to quickly grab the QR code with your phone or use the link there, we have a form that you can fill out if you'd like to engage in this, and let us know how, and we will support that. And all of those opportunities are listed there, but we talked about as well blog posts, social media campaigns, letter writing, op-eds, articles, community outreach and education, doing presentations like this to your communities, or if there are in-person events in your community already happening where we can do things like this. Really just making sure that people are aware of this so that they have the opportunity to use their voice, and we can ensure that we're making seats at the table for patient advocates in our communities to engage meaningfully in the discussions around these policies. So to do that, we'd love to chat with you all a little bit today about some of these things here on the screen. If you'd like to add something in the chat, you can, or if you'd like to speak, please just raise your hand with the raise hand option, and I could click on you and unmute you, and you can join in on our conversation. But we'd really love to hear from you if there are any messages related to PDABs that we shared today that really resonate with you more than others. Like what is most important to you about this, or what are you most concerned about? And were there any concepts that we should expand on and better explain? What resources would be helpful to you to have about PDABs, and how we can support you in engaging with your state lawmakers around PDABs. We have a toolkit that we're going to be putting on our website and sending out to everybody to help do that. And then we'd love for you to connect with us so we can help you. We can make individual social media graphics. We can help curate, specific blogs or letters with you. But we just want to know what else we can be doing that you think would be great. And what questions do you have that we can help answer in future discussions like this or in future educational materials? And what's the best way to communicate about PDABs? Another question. So if there's, again, a piece of this that resonates more with you or you think would resonate with your community more, different information we can provide, different language, anything like that. So I'll open it up now. Please feel free to jump in the chat, or if you have a specific question, you can always put it in the Q&A. Or like I mentioned, you can raise your hand and I can let you in and unmute you. Didn't realize I wouldn't be able to do that with this webinar, so we'll have to do it that way. But would love to hear from you. And our three speakers today, Erica, Neosha, Catherine, please chime in here too. You guys can unmute yourselves.
Okay, let me make sure I understand, Lizzie. So the participants cannot just unmute themselves. You have to unmute them, but they can speak.
Yes, just raise your hand and I should be able to
Okay.
click on you and you can do that. Oh, Shakisha, let me.
I think that's I was gonna ask if she could speak because she has an amazing story that I don't think everyone caught in the chat. So I'm so glad you raised your hand, Shakisha.
Oh, thank you so very much. First, excuse my voice. I am a little under the weather at this moment, but I wanted to first say thank you for having this particular webinar because, you understand, you see, you're experiencing so many different things, but this is the first time that I ever learned about PDABs. And I didn't fully understand what was happening behind the scenes, why this is occurring. And so to be able to get that knowledge today through Tigerlily is such an eye-opener, and I just want to say thank you for that. I think we should do more of these because sometimes we are complaining about things but not really realizing how to fix them or what part or what role we can take in order to make an impact. So thank you again for that. And I had shared in the chat that yes, I experienced that so much, not only just with my regular, treatment and my chemo and cancer related drugs, but in general. There's so many times that I was going through my cancer treatment where I was always offered the less advanced medicine, or I always had to keep switching because of the type of insurance that I had. When I was going through treatment because I wasn't working, I was on Medicaid. And whenever I was getting my port, I still remember it. Plain as day, I'm really big on being really relatable to my oncologists and my nurses, the nurse navigators, and I really try to get in real good so they can give me the inside scoop sometimes when, you want to know like, hey, which one would you prefer? Which one are you getting the best feedback from? And it was time for me to pick my port, and they showed us two ports. And I still remember the way the one that I wanted felt. It was less, it was more discreet. It didn't have all the extra flash. It was just a really more advanced one. And I had chose that one. And whenever the doctor left out, I was asking the nurse navigator, and she was like, yes, more people, go with this one, blah, blah, blah. Tell me all this good stuff. But then I get a call back to let me know that I cannot get that one because my insurance will not pay for it. And that I had to take the one that was less advanced. It was more intrusive in my body. And it just had a lot of negative consequences to it. And so that particular cycle, it continued throughout a lot of my treatment, even when it came to the surgeon that I chose for my double mastectomy, even when it came to the type of forms I got after, like my form, just for my breast and my prosthesis and stuff. So it was like, wait a minute, every time I'm wanting to, try to live and start living again or try to get back to a sense of normalcy, I'm always pulled back 3 or 4 steps. And then I'm having to choose the thing that is less acceptable. And it's just something that it just frustrates you, even when it comes to the type of medication and things that I'm on. One point in time, my Remedex wasn't approved. I had to go to a different one. And then when I was having complications with the Remedex, they were trying to switch me to another one. The one he wanted to switch me to, I couldn't get because now my private insurance wasn't willing to pay as much on that one. So it's always me having to accept the lower, or, really just being like, I feel like I'm giving the things that are just mediocre. And when you're going through such a terrible disease as this one, that's the time when you're not trying to, simmer down or get the thing that is going to be less effective. You're trying to get the thing that's going to help you in your situation the most. So that's just my personal story. And I'm going to do what I can to make sure that I'm learning more about the PDABs and figuring out how I can have a greater impact and just doing my part in it. So thank you again for letting me share my story, guys.
Thank you so much, Shakisha. It is so important, and all these other things that cause delays and access issues like insurance, sometimes utilization management or step therapy, which will be in our glossary we'll share, but these policies where, the insurance might have a preferred treatment or device and your doctor prescribes you something else that's better for you, but they say, no, you got to try this one first. It has to fail or not work or not like it, and then you can maybe get the other one, or they just straight up deny it. And you have to go a different route. All those things already exist. So adding barriers in that way by implementing PDABs and UPLs is just the opposite of helpful. And what you experienced already, and so many, is like unacceptable. So we can't continue down that road. We need to reverse and get back to the point where we can access what we need when we need it without interference from other entities like that. Sorry, Nusha, I see you unmuted. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask Shakisha, how is she doing with her port? Or, because I don't know if you said exactly when it happened, but just wanted to know how
how things are going. I actually getting my port placed in 2017, and I still have my port. Because I still have to go back occasionally to get treatment. And sometimes it's because I have such a hard time like getting blood, and I have rolling veins and things. It's just easier to access and get me there. But because I still have it, the port that I have sometimes it can get clogged, and I have to get it cleaned or flushed every 6 weeks. And because I'm not in treatment as much as I was before, the flushing doesn't come as easily. And that's another thing. I get charged now. It's like when Medicaid, they're just overbilling you. You know how they're going. You really don't care. You're not paying attention because you're not paying out of pocket. But now that I have private insurance, now just to get a flush, it's an extra cost, and it's like so much extra. It's a strain now. And so my doctor's like, well, maybe you should try to remove it. But then again, he's like, well, wait a minute. We'll wait until this time. So it has caused a lot of issues, even to the point where there's the issues with like my heart and things of the sort. It's having an effect on it. And me getting it removed, it would be a good thing, but then it'll be a hindrance in another area. So we're at that actual stage of trying to figure out what I should do and if I should remove it now or should I wait, because I still haven't gotten my reconstruction. And a lot of reasons why I haven't got my reconstruction was because at the time, the insurance was only paying for certain doctors, and I didn't like their work. And I was like, okay, no, I'm not. I'd rather be a flatty than to go around and get something that is not up to par. So it seems like a lot of part of my journey has been affected drastically by the insurance. And now I'm like, okay, so this is why, you know what I mean? So at this point in time, I still have my port. And I try to get my flush done. I'm not getting it every 6 weeks. I'm going to let you know that because it's a financial strain. Yeah. But I try to get it every time I do go back to the doctor. That may be every 3 months. And unfortunately, that's just how it is. But that's where I'm standing at this point, trying to decide if I should remove it or not.
So I've always felt like the doctors are the best advocates for stuff like that. Is your doctor not advocating, or did it just not work?
Sometimes whenever I feel like now that I'm in survivorship or post-treatment survivorship, the type of attention that I get now is not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same. It's like, what is going on now, or what is happening. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is when I really need you guys the most. Yeah. And that's part of and that's another thing. That's my part of my platform. I'm really big on post-treatment survivorship because I realize that this is the hardest part of my treatment journey. It's trying to really get a grasp of things. And I've been in remission for 6 years, and it's just tough because you don't have that support. You don't have those resources to fall back on. People, they tend to forget about you, and
Yeah.
you're misunderstood. You're trying
I
to,
sometimes like miss being sick.
yes.
I do.
Yes, just because people checked on you a little more, there's
Yeah.
more resources.
Yeah.
And when I'm telling my doctor, even to the point where I went in and I was asking, okay, well, I need to start back looking at reconstruction. And then in my chart, I noticed that the lady said, you don't have your reconstruction. They had me charted that I already had it. It was just small stuff like that. I'm like, that's really big
What
for me.
state are you in?
I'm in South Carolina. I'm going to let y'all know South Carolina is terrible.
Yeah.
I know. It is such
I have
a
a friend. We're in an ADHD support group. I'll talk to you about it offline. I'm gonna put my email in the chat. But she's in South Carolina too, and I believe she's metastatic, and she just became metastatic. But I want to connect y'all. So I'm gonna put my email in the chat for you.
Oh, please do. Please do. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Neosha, Erica, and Catherine, if you guys are open to doing that in the chat, and you all have Tigerlily's contact. I know we're a little over. I want to make sure we're being respectful and cognizant of everyone's time. Thank you so much, Shakisha, for sharing that, and Neosha for following up with those questions. It helps get the bigger picture and better ways that we can address these issues. So I will send out some of this. I want to quickly just take a moment to thank our sponsors at Gilead for allowing us to put this on, and all of you for joining. And a very, very special thank you to Neosha, Erica, Catherine, and Lachelle for coming on, sharing your stories, and helping explain this issue in a way that, makes it so personable so we all can engage in this. I saw some comments in the chat and Q&A ways that you can get involved and help with this issue. So I'm going to send out that link for the form. Would love you all to do that. We will have another one of these. We can dive a little bit deeper, and then we'll be sharing those toolkits. So if you're interested in getting a personalized social media graphic like the ones you saw for these ladies today, or something else, letter writing, all that stuff, we're gonna have those tools to help you do that. We're gonna need people to write blogs, to do op-eds, articles, things like that. So really just thank you for being here and spending this time with us, learning this with us. And I'm so sorry, Jacqueline, we didn't do an introduction for you, but Jacqueline has been on the line here with us helping, and most of you know her too. But thank you, Jacqueline, so much for your support with this. And thank you, everybody. We'll be in touch. We'll see you soon. Have a great day.